Good afternoon, everyone. I am Christina Wigren with Stilly Valley Health Connections. I want to thank you for joining us for our monthly budget-friendly class. This month, we are focusing on low-cost lunches and snacks, and Kelsey Baker from Sound Dietitians is going to be presenting on the topic. For everyone who's joining us live, please note that this class is set up in a Zoom webinar format. This means that all of the participants are muted and your videos are turned off so that we can record this presentation. But if you have any questions or comments, we encourage you to ask them or use the chat box or the Q&A box, which are both located at the bottom of your screen. Now I will pass it over to Kelsey. Thank you so much for being here, Kelsey, and thank you to those of us who have joined us for the class so far. We hope that you enjoy the class and learn a lot.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming and joining this evening. Tonight's topic in the budget-friendly series is low-cost snacks and lunches. And we are going to have a little demo at the end for this topic. So to go over the agenda, we have a lot to pack in this evening. We're going to discuss benefits of homemade snacks and lunches, look at cost comparisons versus buying stuff at the store versus making it at home, review budgeting and planning tips, which I'm sure a lot of you, if you've been coming to previous classes, are experts at by now, but we'll quickly go over them. Discuss food safety when preparing lunches, and then learn how to make nutritionally balanced and budget-friendly snacks and lunches, and like steps that can help make the process go faster and make sure that you're hitting all your nutrition requirements. And then, like I said, at the end, we'll do a little demonstration. If people would like to participate, I have some questions for you, and you can type them into your chat box. I was just curious of what are your guys's go-to snacks. Maybe it's for you, or if you have kids or other family members that you prepare meals for, what are some go-to snacks for you all? And Christina, maybe you can help read in the chat, because I, for some reason, can't get the chat to come up if anyone decides to participate. Here we go. Here's my chat. Okay. Okay, if some of my go-to snacks, maybe here's some. Here's avocados, cheese and nuts. These are great ones. Some of my go-to ones are like carrots and hummus or cucumbers and hummus. And then maybe we don't have go-to snacks, or maybe this is part of the reason why you guys logged on. So if anyone feels comfortable and wants to share maybe their biggest challenge to making snacks or lunch. I know for me personally, lunch is a hard meal to make for myself, just for a couple reasons. Because it's in the middle of the day where I feel like I'm the most busy. So if I don't have something prepped ahead of time, planning, Suzanne said, it can be really tricky. We kind of have our go-tos for breakfast, and maybe we plan for dinner, but lunch gets kind of lost in the middle there. So I'm hoping after today, we can maybe find a little bit of some strategies around it to make it easier. Okay. So what are the benefits of homemade snacks and lunches, and really any meal? Is cost savings, which we'll go over some examples. Nutrition, you have a lot more control over the nutrition that you're getting when we make it ourselves. And then family involvement. So if have other people living in your home, this is the way to connect, and we'll talk about that. So cost savings, store-bought, it is more convenient, but it is often more expensive because you're paying for that convenience. And versus homemade, it can be up to 50 to 60% cheaper. However, it is more time. So we just have to weigh like where can we do things quickly, and also save money at the same time. But to kind of encourage this, switching from store-bought snack packs of common go-to snacks or lunches can save us money over a year. So the example I have listed here, if you ever see those like hummus and carrot dips, or I think there's like cheese and peanut butter, or cheese and apples, or peanut butter and apples. I see like little pre-made packs, super convenient, but also can be a lot more expensive. And if we were to go to just making that ourselves, um, 3 times per week, this can save up to $150 a year for a family of 4. And there's many other examples that we could go over, and I'll share some now. But that, I think this kind of shows like, okay, 3 times a week, like that's something doable, and that's a goal I could set, is making a snack 3 times a week to save this money. So granola bars, I feel, are our go-to options, especially with kiddos in the house. So I just wanted to break this down. An average cost of a store-bought box is $3.99 for 6 bars. So this comes out to about 67 cents per bar. But if we were to make a homemade batch, we usually can get about 12 bars out of a recipe, and then this breaks down to 28 cents per batch. So we're saving about 60% per bar. A hummus and veggie snack pack, which we kind of just went over, but I wanted you guys to see the actual numbers. So it's about $4.99 for a 4-pack, which is $1.25 per serving, versus homemade, it's about 55 cents. And this is greater than 50% savings per serving. So do it yourself Lunchable DIY. I think everyone can visualize the classic Lunchable of the crackers, the cheese, and some kind of meat option. They're about $3.99 a kit. I was looking up different versions, and this is kind of the average cost for one. And versus if we were to make homemade ones for about a family size of family of 4, it's going to cost you $14.47, which breaks down to about $2.90, and or in bulk about $1.50. And this is a savings to 25 to 60% depending on your portions. So how does this look when we're talking about the nutrition? So like a Lunchable, for example, they can be really high in sodium and a lot of additives. So if we're making it ourselves, we have more control over that added sugar and salt and preservatives. And this can be really nutritionally benefit. You have the ability to use whole grains versus more refined grains. You can use fresh produce, and you can balance out your proteins. Snacks balanced with protein plus fiber will help keep us full. So a lot of times, I mean, the food world's catching on to this, is to have this pairing. But a lot of times, like if we're in a hurry, we'll just grab an apple, or we'll grab like a bag of nuts, but we're missing that pairing. And if we can pair the two, then we're going to get the right amount of protein and carbohydrates. And this will help keep our blood sugar balanced, and will help keep us full longer, so we're not feeling like we need another snack in 20 minutes after eating. Portion control, you can decide the serving size instead of relying on a snack size packaging. So sometimes those snack size packaging aren't enough for some people. Sometimes they're too much. And I'm not sure why that just clicked over. I'm gonna go back. So you have more control on how much you're serving to your kiddos or to yourself. An example is a homemade granola bar has about 7 grams of sugar versus a store-bought with 12 to 15 grams. And then the last topic of encouraging to prep more of our snacks and lunches, or any really meal at home, is the family involvement. So if you are living in a home with more than one person, or you have kids, this is a way to get others involved in the meal prep. So if you have kiddos, they can help wash veggies, stir trail mix, spread peanut butter on different items. It also helps kids, when you get them involved, when you have the patience for it, to build confidence, teamwork, and basic cooking skills. Or maybe you have a roommate or a partner in the home that isn't cooking as much. And if you can encourage them, if you're like the main provider to like maybe be involved 1 or 2 times a week, this can help build their confidence in teamwork as well. So it doesn't have to just, these don't have to just apply to kids. Children are more likely to eat food that they've helped prepared. And I would say this is true with adults too. It helps expand your palate and be curious about the thing that you just made. And it can be time efficient. So if you are in a large household and you find that you're the only one making the food for everybody, getting other people involved and giving them certain tasks can break up the work and save you time. Or maybe they're in charge of cleanup duty and then you don't have to be doing the cleaning. So next we're going to go into some practical tips for budget friendly meals. So some money saving tips for families. We've did a whole class on this, but about buying in bulk to save costs. So buying in bulk can mean one of two things. Either you're using like the bulk bins at stores that have these, and you're buying stuff per pound or less, or maybe more depending on the item. Like Winco has a great bulk section. Fred Meyer's, some of the Fred Meyer's still do. Safeway did, but I think they, after COVID, kind of switched over to having the bulk items pre weighed out. Sprouts, but those are some examples. Or bulk can also mean shopping at like the big box stores like Costco or Walmart. Those have where you can buy more items, and usually per item it's less. You can prep meals ahead of time for convenience, or maybe just a portion of the meal. So if every morning you're making your lunch, but you don't have time to chop the fruits and vegetables, that it's okay to chop fruits and vegetables ahead of time. They'll last in the fridge. You just have to store them in like an airtight container to keep the freshness. And then that way you're just grabbing and throwing into a lunchbox. Choose seasonal produce for freshness. So right now, apples are really coming into season, pears, all our fall harvest, pumpkin, squashes, those types of items. You're going to get more flavor and they're going to be less money per ounce per pound. Utilize your freezer and for leftovers. So let's say you make a big batch of something, you can freeze half of it and then thaw it out and reheat it if you're eating lunches at home, or if you are going into like work and have access to a microwave, you could reheat your dinner leftovers. And then for like lunches, and that's an example I'll show, maybe you made a protein and you cooled it properly, you can eat that protein like chicken or pork or something cool in the lunch the next day, or serve it to your kids in their lunchbox the next day. And then repurpose foods to minimize waste. So this means like, let's say you have a half a can of beans that you're not sure what to do with, you can like mix it in a batch of rice, and then you have beans and rice, and then that's like a nice paired protein that you can add to something else. But always thinking like, oh, I only have a little bit of this can't serve everybody. There's a way to mix it in and use it in another food item. So we're not throwing away food, because if we throw away food, we're throwing away money. Some additional planning tips is let kids help plan, shop, prepare, and pack based on their readiness. So maybe you sit down on a Sunday and you talk about, like, if you're packing their lunches, what is it that they would like in their lunch? They can't choose everything, but maybe you say what fruit, and like be specific, that you would like in your lunch this week, or what vegetable, or if there's a small treat that you're okay with, like having them choose that. And then same if you live alone, or you're just adults in the household and you're making snacks to take to work, or lunches to take to work, planning ahead and shopping ahead and kind of making a little list of what you're going to use or how you're going to reuse your dinner leftovers. Just having a little bit of plan set aside is going to help you when you're in that moment having to prepare it, and not having to think on the spot when it's like in the morning, if you're trying to prepare getting out the door, or the night before when you're tired. Just having that little plan jotted down somewhere can be really, really useful for the week. And then I put some examples if there are kids in the home. Grades 1 through 3 introduce lunch planning chart. include them in the decision making, that's totally appropriate for their age level. And then grades 4 through 6, you can encourage them packing all or part of their lunch independently. Like once you show them these are the different components they should contain. And speaking of those components, this is kind of what we're looking for. You're picking an item from each food group, and we're going to go into more detail at the end. But real quickly, you want them to choose a protein option. And this is true for adults too. Like same goes for adults. A grain option, a veggie option, a fruit option. And then I would say dairy is optional, but it is for kids a good source of calcium if they can tolerate dairy, but it's not necessary. You want to include a variety of colors and shapes. Shapes would be, I guess, more for kids, but even for adults, having a colorful meal is going to make it look more appetizing. We do eat with all of our senses, with what we see, what we smell, even when we hear it cooking, and then taste. So if it looks presentable, that's going to encourage you to want to eat what you made. And then for kiddos, you can use the fun shaped cutters for like sandwiches or fruit if you have the time. This is absolutely not necessary. Maybe you do it once a week to like surprise them. Wash your fruit and veggies ahead of time. We'll go over this more in our food safety section. And peel and slice them to make them easier for the kids to eat. An example of this, I noticed my kiddo just started kindergarten and I'm packing his lunches, and he says he doesn't have enough time at lunch to eat everything, but he comes home starving. So half of his lunch is still in there. And I realized packing apples probably isn't the best idea because they're a time consuming food to eat. It takes a lot of chewing before you can swallow them. So I switched over to like berries that are a faster food for, or fruit that he can eat. So just kind of thinking through some of those nuances, like, is this an item that's going to take a long time to eat if you are crunched for your lunchtime? Even if you go to work, this is the same thing you want to think about. If you only have like a half-hour lunch, do you need to heat up the item for a long time? Do you want to be doing something else during your lunchtime and you only want to spend like 10 or 15 minutes eating? Just kind of thinking through these things can really help the day go smoother and that lunch time go smoother. Make sure that the lunchbox container or pouches are easy to open. This is probably more for kiddos, just so they're not struggling and having to find someone to open it for them when they have a limited lunch hour, or not even an hour. I think it's like 20 minutes. And we already talked about repurposing leftovers whenever you can, just to speed things up. And then small treats are totally okay and can make a kid excited for the lunch, and just kind of decide what it is that you want to offer them. Question, let's see. Picky family makes it hard to make bulk snacks or lunches. Getting enough protein and veggies without falling asleep afterwards. So yeah, picky family makes it hard to make bulk snacks or lunches. That's totally understandable, and definitely we could do a whole presentation on picky eating. I think spending the time to sit down and go over like giving them choices that you're okay with, like, okay, we're gonna choose this vegetable or this vegetable, this fruit or this fruit, and just kind of drawing a line of like, these are options, you're getting to make the choice, but we're not gonna have a million different things because it's not fair to have you make 4 different meals for everybody. So I don't know, it's a hard conversation, and that's definitely something I could do a different presentation on, but I totally hear you on that. And maybe we're not making bulk items ahead of time, but we're like parsing out the different pieces and giving 2 choice options. So it's a little bit more control for you in the kitchen, if that makes sense. And then getting enough protein and veggies without falling asleep afterwards. Yeah, finding that right portion amount for an adult. If we're doing a snack serving, I would say we want about 2 to maybe 3 ounces of protein. So 3 ounces is about the size of the palm of your hand. And then a half a cup to a cup of fruit or veggies to pair with that. That pairing is going to be really, really important to help you not feel sleepy later. And then if it's a lunch, then we want to make sure for an adult that you're getting about anywhere from 3 to 5 ounces, 6 ounces, it kind of depends on your size, of protein, and then we're having like a serving of fruit and vegetables to go with it. And then hopefully some whole grain option there. And then for kiddos, I would say, depending on the age and the size of kiddo, the protein is probably about 2 ounces that we're aiming to get. But that is a really good point, that pairing is so important to help keep our blood sugar balanced. When our blood sugar crashes, that is the sleepy feeling that's occurring. Okay, so now let's jump into budget-friendly snack ideas for everyone. So like going over specific ideas. I think it's usually helpful for most people just because we get in a rut. So creating your own trail mix at home. I think I talked about this in a previous presentation, but you can go to a bulk section of like Winco and buy exactly what you'd want to throw in your trail mix, whether it's some seeds and nuts, some dried fruit, maybe a little bit of chocolate chips, and you can design exactly what you want to go in it and make it yourself. And that's going to save, I think I did a cost breakdown last time, and it was about a 60% saving of making your own few cups of trail mix versus buying one of the pre-made bags, which can be. Just the other day, I almost went and grabbed one out of convenience, and I saw the price. It was like $9. I was like, oh no, we are gonna just take the few minutes that it takes to do this, because it was significantly less to buy the items in bulk. Another snack option is to do like one of those yogurt parfaits. This is a really good example of where you have a lot of control over the nutrition in it. The pre-made ones at the store can have a lot of sugar, like 15 to 20 grams of sugar. So this way, when you're making it at home, you can really control how you're sweetening it and what's going into it. Some crunchy veggie sticks with hummus. This is kind of my favorite, easy, have pre-chopped veggies that you chopped yourself. You could also buy them pre-chopped, but again, that's going to cost a little bit more. Making your own hummus dip is very simple. It's garbanzo beans, tahini, and then you can throw, and then some olive oil or other cooking oil, and then however you want to flavor it up with whatever spice or herb that you want to do. Or you can just keep it simple with those 3 ingredients. You could throw lemon juice in there. You blend it all in a blender, and it's done, and it will last for the week in the fridge. Sliced apples and bananas for a treat, and I would even pair those with some kind of nut or seed butter just to help with balancing blood sugar. My kiddo really loves, he's allergic to peanut butter, but we do sun butter, and I just add a little bit of honey to sweeten it up. Because I buy the non-sugar added just to have a little bit more control over that. And then you can make homemade popcorn and add your favorite seasoning on there. The popcorn has a lot of fiber in it. You could pair that with some more fruit and maybe some slices of turkey or pieces of cheese to get a little bit more protein. Okay. So some delicious and easy lunch ideas for families or solo. Wraps filled with veggies and protein. So when I say a wrap, I'm talking like some kind of tortilla shell, like a soft tortilla, and then you're filling it with whatever fresh veggies that you want and protein choice. It could be smashed beans, which is really budget friendly. It could be tofu, again, more of an inexpensive protein option. Or if you have leftover meat or fish or something from dinner, this is a way to repurpose it and roll it up. And when you're adding other things in there, it can be a nice complete meal. Kind of on the same idea as the wraps is the pinwheels, and this is just kiddos find it fun when you like chop your wrap up in about 1-inch circles, and then they can see all the different items, and they're nice, easy bite size, and easier for them to control than maybe like a whole like burrito style wrap. Creative leftover remix for tasty lunches. So this is like one night I had like a little bit of salmon left and some rice, and I was like, okay, how can I repurpose this for lunch the next day? I just shredded up the salmon and mixed it into the rice, and I added some like vinegar and some spinach and just kind of made this little bowl, and it was delicious and kind of fun because the rice stuck to everything and my kids enjoyed eating it. But there's a lot of ideas for that. Maybe if anyone has one they would want to share, you could. Some other DIY Lunchables. So I really like doing your own Lunchables with your favorite ingredients. I think I even with my adult patients, and that are usually when like weight loss is a goal and where they're skipping meals or they're just relying on some grab and go, we talk about making their own Lunchable and kind of using like a bento box or some other kind of container system and finding an item from each container. They have a lot of success when they're consistent with this of getting their lunches in, and then they get to pick what's in there. So I really love the Lunchables, and it makes it fun to eat and really easy to make your portions. And then another go-to one in my household is like a grain bowl. So you can pre-batch cook up any kind of wild rice, brown rice, white rice. You could do quinoa, um, lentils are a great protein source, but then adding your veggies, adding some leafy greens, picking some kind of dressing to put on top, and it can be served hot or cold, and really really versatile and easy to mix into the week or to add leftovers too. And just because, as someone mentioned, protein is tricky, and trust me, so many of my clients that I work with, this is a struggle. This is a struggle in my own house, especially at lunchtime. But some more affordable sources are eggs, even though I know the price of eggs have gone up. But as far as like the amount of protein that you're getting in an egg, it still is more affordable than some of the meat options out there. And then so you could hard boil them up, and it's easy to batch boil eggs and have them as a grab and go option. And you can slice it to put on top of a salad. You could just eat the egg whole and pair it with some vegetables or fruit as a snack. So lots of different ways to use eggs. Canned tuna or canned salmon or any other kind of canned chicken. I know Costco sells like canned chicken, but I always try to have some of that in my pantry, stocked in my pantry, because if my fridge is empty or I didn't have enough leftovers from the night before for the protein, it's like, oh, go to the pantry, grab the tuna, and you can mix garbanzo beans in it or cannelli beans, and then that helps add more fiber and more protein, and if you only have like one can, you can make a larger portion with it. And then you can throw it in a wrap, throw it on top of a salad, use it as a dip for crackers, really, really versatile. And you don't have to do mayo. If your kids don't like mayo or you don't like mayo, you could use any kind of salad dressing. I like to do canned tuna with like an Italian vinaigrette. And then it doesn't have that mayo-y like texture and taste. I actually like that as well, but I know a lot of people that I work with do not. So when we think of tuna fish or the chicken salad, just know that there's other options to mix in there. It doesn't have to be mayonnaise. And then beans, I just listed two that are kind of my go-tos, garbanzo or the cannelli beans. They're just really easy to, you can either like roast them up, you can mix them into stuff like I just mentioned, you can make them into hummus. They're really, really versatile beans, but any kind of bean would work. Those are just two go-tos for this house. But all of these proteins elevate your budget-friendly lunches while keeping them nutritious, tasty, and satisfying for the whole house. Okay, so like I said, we are going to talk about some food safety because lunches usually aren't eaten in the home. We're either sending kids off to school or we're going off to work, unless you get to work from home. But I think food safety is really important for this particular meal, just because I think this is where some things can go wrong. So when you're preparing the food, you really want to make sure that you, especially if you're making like your lunch the night before, that you wash your hands beforehand for 30 seconds or singing happy birthday 2 times, using clean cutting boards, utensils, and knives, and making lunch on the same surfaces. You want to use different surfaces that you do for like raw meat or even cooked meat to avoid cross contamination. And then we want to separate everything out. So as you can see in this picture, one cutting board has like the produce and one cutting board has the meats. And then you want to make sure if you're cooking up that meat that you're going to then chill for lunch the next day, because you plan on eating it like cold chicken the next day. So you want to cook the foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer ideally. So like chicken, you want to cook to like 165, pork it's about 145 to 155, fish is about 130, 135. But make sure it comes to that temperature, and then you want to cool it in the fridge for a couple hours to make it come down to that 40, like 38 to 41 degrees, and then it would be okay to serve cold. If the lunch contains, like if you're packing a lunch, if it contains perishable items like meat that you cooked or eggs or yogurt, something that you know needs to stay cold, use two cold sources. So either two of like a freezer pack, and I'll show these on the camera later. Like these usually stay frozen for about 8 hours. You can freeze up a water bottle that, and then you know if you're gone all day or your kid's gone all day, as it thaws, and they have extra drinking water. So I really like that idea as well. But yeah, make sure you have two sources in there if the lunch is going to be consumed more than 2 hours away of it coming out of the refrigerator. Um, so this is just a little bit more details about packing a safe lunch. So we already talked about freezing. Like this gives you could freeze a juice box. By lunchtime will be thawed out. Making sure you use an insulated lunch box that you're putting your lunch container in. So some examples, again, I'll show these a little bit more close when the screen's not up, but this is one example. It zips. A freezer container can go in here, and then on the bottom and the lunchbox will go in there. This is a bag example. You can see it's insulated. And then these ones, which I think a lot of people have, don't, it's like the smaller bags that zip on the top, but then when you zip them, they still have kind of a area where like air can go through. So these ones don't stay as insulated and as cold as envelope. So I would really make sure if you're using a bag like this that you're eating the lunch within like 4 hours, even if you have two freezer packs in there, or maybe you add an extra freezer pack. Just because I don't trust these ones as much, but I know a lot of people use them. So just think about that when you're eating your food, making sure it's still chilled. If you're packing a hot lunch like soup or chili or stew, making sure you're using an insulated container to keep it nice and warm. If you're sending your kiddos with like one of those thermos soup cups that have like a screw-on lid, you just want to make sure it's not too hot. So because those insulated cups can work really well, so you don't want them to like burn themselves when they open it up, or warn them ahead of time like, hey, this is hot. You might want to open it and have it cool down while you eat like your fruit or veggies or treat. But yeah, just making sure it's not boiling when you put it in there, but you do want it around 140 degrees to keep it in that food safe zone. And then after lunch, discard all your leftover food. If it came to room temperature and sat at room temperature, you do not want to reheat that. Use food packaging. You don't want to reuse that just because you don't know what kind of bacteria was growing in there. So like, let's say you have a Ziploc and you threw in some fruit and it stayed chilled, but then the kiddo came home because they went to like after school care, like it's definitely not within that window of how long the freezer packs can keep the lunchbox cold. So you don't want to reuse those Ziplocs because there could be some like bacteria that has started to grow in there. And like we already talked about, we always want to wash our hands before eating. You could try to pack the kids something to wipe their hands with. I just try to always remind my son, and he always like, yeah, mom, to wash his hands before he sits down for lunch. Every Friday we wash out our lunch boxes with warm water and soap, and then just let them air dry. And we already talked about the frozen water bottle. Any questions or comments there? Okay, I will keep on going. Okay, so let us build a lunch and snack. It's gonna be mostly a lunch. But I guess I just want to make really clear the difference between a lunch and a snack and making sure we're getting enough. So when you're trying to choose a nutritious snack, you want to pick something from the protein section and then one item at minimum from either the vegetable section, the fruit section, or the whole grain section. Ideally, it'd be a fruit or vegetable just from a nutrition standpoint, but that we want that pairing to occur. And the protein is going to help keep the balanced blood sugar. And then when we're building a lunch, we want to pick something from all the categories. And I believe Christina emailed some of the handouts that I'm going to show you. So we can go over these together. So this handout, there was 3 pages, but I just wanted to show this one on my screen really quickly when I'm talking about the categories. So we're picking something from this protein, and you can see that the size is 1/4 cup to 2 ounces, all the way up to 8 ounces, depending on, like, maybe you have a high schooler that you're helping make the lunches. And if you are, I encourage you to help encourage them to make their own lunch. But depending on how proteins and the size of the kiddo and the age, but this is the amounts, and these are some examples. So you want to pick something from the first category. And again, this is the same for adults too. Even if you have no kids, like, you still want to pick a protein amount. And then we're going to do a starch of some sort. So we could do crackers, cereal. This is where whole grains come in. You could do like a whole grain bread, some sweet potatoes, muffins, energy bars, granola bars. There's a place for even chips and pasta and those types of items as well. And these are about the serving sizes that we're going for our starch or whole grain. And then for fruit, we're doing about 1/2 cup of size or 1 medium. So maybe it's an applesauce, dehydrated fruit, freeze-dried fruit, or maybe you're doing 1 medium banana, orange. For the berries, I would say about 1/2 cup. Grapes, about 1/2 cup. Cubed up melon and a kiwi would be like a whole kiwi. Obviously, there's more options than what's listed on this. This is just to give you all some ideas. And then we want to pick from, if we're building our lunch, a vegetable, 1/2 to 1 cup. So we're doing cucumbers, tomatoes, bell peppers, carrots, snap peas, jicama, salad green, celery, freeze-dried veggies. These are all different ideas. If we're really wanting to round it out and get extra bonus points, trying to make sure there's some kind of fat. So fat can be found in a protein item. It can even be found in like a fruit. So like avocados would be an example of a fat. Dairy, there's lots of good fat in the dairy. And this just helps you feel more satiated and full, so you don't get as hungry as quickly. And then extra bonus points if you are making this for someone else. How you present it can really make a difference in whether it is consumed or not. So we're including an item from each category. Some foods will be kind of a combination of categories, and then we want to serve a portion size that fits your appetite, or if you're serving kiddos, their appetite. And also knowing that our appetites change from day to day, so if that's okay too. Like, some days we might be really, really hungry and other days we won't. And as long as the food's available, we just don't want to overpack lunches if we are leaving the home, because it's more likely something is going to go to waste, and then we're wasting money. Okay, so I'm going to stop my screen share, and then I'm going to have you all help me make a lunch for my kiddo for tomorrow, and you can see it in action. So let's see. You guys still seeing my screen? Desktop. Okay. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you guys see me and not the presentation anymore. if you guys are still seeing the presentation, can you let me know in the chat?
I can still see the presentation.
You still see the presentation. Okay, what is happening here? So I went to share, Christina, and I switched it to desk. Christina, or here, stop share. There's my button. Okay, how about now? Sorry.
Looks good.
Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna move. We're in my son's little art area, so I'm gonna go like this. There we have it pre-laid out here. But as you can see, this is the bento size box that I'm going to use for him. This is just another example. But I'm just going to show you kind of what this looks like if we were to include items from all those categories. So I'm going to cut up his strawberries. I chose about 4 strawberries because this is about a half a cup, and I know it's his favorite, and he doesn't get through all of his veggies. He does get home in time where everything is still cold, that I serve whatever's left in his lunch for his snack because he comes home hungry. Like I said, he seems to not have enough time to eat, probably too much socializing. And this way it makes my life easy in the afternoon that I don't have to think about a snack. But like if he eats all this protein option, then I would just grab something else, maybe some hummus for the carrots to be dipped into, or maybe like a turkey stick or some slices of cheese or something. And then I'm gonna cut up. And this is probably more than that half a cup serving, but like I said, I'm also gonna repurpose some of this for his snack time. That's probably good. So I use this whole container, that side of it, to do his fruits and veggies because this is probably equal to 1 cup. And remember, we're doing about a half a cup of the fruits and the veggies. And then these 2 are about 2 ounces. He loves meat, and I made a pork tenderloin for dinner last night. So I'm going to repurpose that for his lunch. And I'm going to put it in these 2 containers because then I know if I fill those up, he's getting enough protein for the meal. And then I'm going to just take some popcorn. I had a leftover bag, and I'm just going to fill it on this side. And then I had some roasted up garbanzo beans that I'm also going to add, which is also another source of protein and a little bit more fiber, and kind of mix it in there, and it makes the popcorn a little bit more interesting looking. And I would put like a little treat right here, like 2 cookies, or he's into like the sour candy or something, and I put it in a little pouch there. But voila. And that took, with me talking, like 2 or 3 minutes to do. If your kid's okay with it, it's okay to serve them the same thing. It's okay to serve yourself the same thing multiple days in a row. It takes that fatigue of trying to come up with something new. But if you're trying to like have a little variety for yourself or for your kiddos, you could like switch up your veggie, you could switch up your fruit. Maybe one day cook some pasta and like mix the vegetables, like cut up the vegetables and the meat and just make like a big pasta salad or a salad for yourself. So there's way to switch it up, but also not have to like completely reinvent the wheel. So we're trying to keep this easy, time saving, and budget friendly. So that is everything I have for you all tonight. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thank you for joining me.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Thank you for another great class. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, and so I will just go ahead and share that our next budget-friendly series is going to be at the end of October. And so we hope that you're able to join us for that one. I will send out the link with the information as well as the registration link for anyone who is interested in registering. And also, as you leave today's Zoom, there will be a quick 6-question survey. So if you guys have any ideas for future budget-friendly classes or for future nutrition programming in general, we'd love to hear them. So please let us know. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you in future classes. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Thank you, Christina.
Everyone have a great rest of your week. Bye.